Hi, I'm Natasha Mulholland, the marketing manager of the Angelika Film Center in San Diego. And this is our new series, Coffee Club, where we talk to local film industry professionals about our favorite topic, film. So hit that subscribe button to find out more about the Angelika Film Center and our wonderful partners that we'll be talking with throughout this series. You can also watch previous Q&As that happened at our New York cinema. And we are currently delivering food through Uber Eats at our San Diego location. So get on the website and order some popcorn or any of your favorite menu items. So today for Coffee Club, we're talking with Brian Hu, the artistic director of the Pacific Arts Movement. Welcome, Brian.
Oh,
Cheers.
thank you. Here, cheers.
Thanks for joining me in my virtual Angelika Film Center lobby. Brian, tell us a little about yourself and your involvement with film.
Yeah, I mean, I wear a lot of hats when it comes to being involved with film. So first off, as you mentioned, I'm the artistic director of Pacific Arts Movement. Basically, that means I pick all our movies that we show. Mostly we're best known for putting on the San Diego Asian Film Festival, which has now been going on for 20 years. And we have other year-round events and other smaller festivals that we do. I'm also an assistant professor at San Diego State University, where I teach in the program in television, film, and new media. I have a kind of an Asian American film history podcast called Saturday School. But I've also had kind of previous lives as a film critic and film scholar, researcher. Yeah.
Oh, Brian, I didn't know all of that about you. How do people find out about the film festival and about your podcast?
So our podcast is called Saturday School. So you could just search Saturday School podcast. I think our Twitter handle is Wake Up Sat School. It's supposedly coming out every Saturday, but it's been a little more sporadic. But in terms of our work at Pacific Arts Movement, we're pretty easy to find on all the social media. PAC Arts Movement, search Pacific Arts Movement. So we're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, etc. And then our film festival, San Diego Asian Film Festival, our website is sdaff.org, where you can always find out kind of our upcoming festivals.
That's fantastic. In 20 years, that is, wow. That must feel really good to be part of something that has been, such a pillar of the community.
Yeah, they say a lot of festivals don't make it past year two. So
oh my gosh.
the fact that we've been around means that our audiences and our community partners, our sponsors, the city, the state, the federal level, they all sort of believe in what we do. They come and support us financially. We have a membership base of just kind of year-round supporters, and we're very grateful for that. And it also means that because we specialize in Asian and Asian American cinema, and those are areas that people don't always feel like that there's necessarily an audience for that, but we prove that there is, and year in and year out. I mean, the Angelika definitely knows.
Yes,
and I know because I look at your schedule all the time, especially for things like anime and art house films. Like, we're really grateful for kind of the position that you have created also in fostering a community for Asian cinema here in San Diego.
Thank you. And I agree. I feel that cultural cinema is extremely important, and people love to hear the language of their home country or the language of their parents, or be able to see people who, sound and look like them on screen. It's extremely important. And it's really wonderful that you're able to bring that to the community. So where are, how do you find a lot of your films? Do you go to film festivals in Asia?
Yeah. So many ways. I mean, these days it's mostly through links that get submitted to us.
Sure.
We're not going to film festivals quite as much as we used to. Two of the festivals that I used to go to more regularly, the Hong Kong International Film Festival, the Golden Horse Film Festival in Taipei. The big one where I get a lot of the films, I go to Cannes every year because that's really the meeting grounds for the entire international film world.
Right.
And timing wise, it's perfect for us. Of course, it's not happening this year, so it'll be interesting to see what happens.
And they really held out for as long as they could. They only just announced just recently, right?
Yeah, I know, because that's when I got my plane tickets refunded finally.
Yeah, you were like, "Hello, I need that money back."
Yeah, seriously.
Oh my god!
But we get a lot of our films are are selected, especially Asian American films, through our open call. So right now we have an open call for submissions. So a lot of independent filmmakers, people in search of distribution, they just submit their films to us, and we have a team that sorts through hundreds of films every year. Otherwise, I have relationships with distributors, sales agents in Asia, but also in Europe and North America, who are looking for ways to get the word out that their
Of
films
course.
exist. And
Yeah.
they've come to know our audience in San Diego, which is very exciting.
So how has this situation affected you and the Pacific Arts Movement?
Well, so I mean, most immediately, we were
Yeah.
supposed to have a smaller festival known as our Spring Showcase,
Right.
which is now was going to be our 10th year this year.
And it was
And
this week, right? Or
yeah, I
was
think
it
today was supposed to be closing night or something like that. I mean,
crushing?
it seems like ages ago when we had to postpone it. So officially,
Yeah,
we've postponed it in hopes that by late summer, early fall, there might be a window for us to still put it on. In fact,
certainly.
I had already programmed the entire slate. We were ready to go to make the announcement of our lineup, and it was going to be one of our best lineups. I'm
Oh,
still sitting on these titles, hoping that they'll be able to find an audience here in San Diego. But so immediately we had to, like, that didn't happen. And so that's audiences that we normally keep engaged throughout the year before our big festival in November. These are community groups that kind of count on us to kind of use us as a resource for events for their own communities, for their classes, for their campuses. And also just kind of sad to see that these are
it
films
is.
that we don't know if they're going to find an audience. So that's like our immediate, like, short-term kind of shift that we've had to make. And then secondly, everyone in the entire film festival world is waiting to see if we need to switch to an online platform.
Right.
So come November, when our main festival is, again, we're still aiming for a face-to-face festival, as if that's going to happen, but we have to be prepared, because we know that if we don't put on an event, whether it's virtual or face-to-face, these are films that 2020 is going to be an empty year of all
Yeah.
these films that are being made, and they won't be able to find audiences the same way. So our commitment is still to these filmmakers and to the audiences that are hungry for these films. And we believe that everyone will understand 2020 is a strange year, and if they have to see it from home,
Yeah.
it'll happen.
Right. Right. Well, fabulous. Yeah, I totally understand that. So we're going to try for perhaps some sort of blended thing if need be. We're doing something similar where right now with films, with especially the indie and art house films that we're supposed to be showing in the theater right now, we're able to work with the distributor, and you can download them directly from our site so people can still get the content. But, I love movie theaters. Don't you love movie theaters?
I mean, I have literally committed my
Right?
career to
Same.
ensuring certain kinds of films still get played in movie theaters.
Yeah.
Um, this
And
is, I mean,
why
we
are they
fall in love
important?
with movies because of movie theaters.
Right, right. So do you have like a favorite memory or an early memory of going to the movie theater?
Um, the earliest memory I could think of was, I don't know what year it was. It was the 80s, but well, we watched Oliver and Company, the Disney movie.
Aw,
I mean, I was just like a little kid, like dogs, and I remember
yeah,
how excited I was to see it in the movie theater. I remember that it wasn't just that I was watching this movie that I was excited about, that I saw commercials for, but also that, like, my entire family went. Like, we had some extended family that came with us. I've never talked to my parents about it, but I wonder in their heads, like, was it momentous to take me to a film theater for the first time? I know,
yeah,
like, if I had kids, like, I would be really excited for their first experience in a movie theater. So,
definitely.
and that's, I remember that. I don't remember the first time I watched the film on VHS, but I remember the first time I watched the movie in a movie theater.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I totally understand that. I remember you reminded me of this time I was in summer camp and it rained, so they took us to the movies, and Benji was showing, and it's like the saddest movie. I mean, I just was crying and like blubbering when I left, but still, I
Yeah,
loved the
that's
experience.
so memorable. I totally get it. Like, I remember we watched All Dogs Go to Heaven.
Yes. Oh,
Those dog movies. But I remember, like, going, I think it was me, my sister, and my dad. And at some point, I don't remember if I started crying or my sister started crying. We had to, like, leave the theater for a bit.
oh,
Um, but I remember this. Maybe because it was traumatic. Maybe it's something about that big screen experience that's just, like, so real and visceral. Um, but, like, it stays with me to this day. And I remember very little about that movie, except that I saw it in a movie theater and that I cried in the middle of it.
you cried. I don't remember it being traumatic. I just remember being surprised that like a movie could do that to me, like, whoa, but it wasn't real, you know?
Mhm.
Like, that's amazing. So, what do you think will help movie theaters survive? And, how do we keep them relevant in our lives?
It's the big question right now, and
Yeah.
everyone has their theories about it. I mean, like for the last few years or now, so I mean, like really, like for decades, people have been talking about the way in which the competition from television and from other kinds of media
Yeah.
will mean that only the big movies will survive in theaters, like only the
Mhm.
tentpole kind of like action, like spectacle films. And I
Sure.
think I think to that makes sense, right? You can't. It's harder to replicate that in a home experience.
Right.
But I actually think that it's going to replicate what's happening with the streaming space, which is diversification. Like I mean, like people are now at home watching streaming films that they may not have otherwise watched.
Hmm.
And they've been doing that for years. Like on Netflix, people watch documentaries all the time. And
Right.
traditionally, we think about movie theaters as places where documentaries don't thrive. But I feel like when we're back in the movie theaters, people will now have been exposed to so many other kinds of films. So I think one way in which theaters can survive actually is to diversify and not just do the big tentpole films. I mean, it's going to be an
Yeah.
experiment, but I actually feel like that's going to be the case. And we've started to see, especially with like what you're doing at the Angelika, that like anime films do really well. Older films do, like showing Hitchcock films.
Totally.
Um, I remember being shut out of a Hitchcock film. I went to the Angelika and I was like too late. I wasn't able to watch Dial M for Murder in 3D, which I've always wanted to do.
Oh
Because but clearly people want to see these films that are already available in other ways.
no. Right.
And maybe they've started to understand that just the same way they want a diversity of different kinds of content from the streaming platforms, maybe they want to see diversity from movie theaters as well. So that's where I'm going to invest my energies in believing in.
Nice. And that's very positive. I like to hear that. That's very positive. And I agree. I mean, I definitely think that, it's one thing to sit around in your recliner chair, but, to get that sort of camaraderie of being around people, it's the best. So do you have a favorite movie theater snack?
I'm traditionally I don't really eat in theaters, but when I do, I will say like I'm just normally a gummy fan, so like any kind of like gummy bears and things like that. But also in the movie theater, it's just the quieter snack.
Oh, right, right, right.
So for myself, I don't want to be distracted by the sound of my own chewing, and also I don't like hearing other people chew too much. Um, but yeah, I've said gummy snacks.
Gummy
And I
snacks.
love, I mean, popcorn obviously always hits the spot.
Yum. So, okay, what was your favorite film or experience of 2019? And that could be maybe a Q&A you hosted or
Yeah.
something, some event you attended.
Well, in terms of the Q&As I hosted, it's just great to when you bring in filmmakers from other places in the world,
Yes.
and it's their first time in the United States, and they don't know if people in the US will like their movie. And
Yeah.
suddenly they see the people, right? Like
Right.
if your film was streaming, you wouldn't be able to see the people who you didn't know existed, and you still aren't really sure they exist. They're just numbers to you. But here, like you see that audience. And we showed a Vietnamese film called Song Lang last year, and I remember the filmmaker telling me like he doesn't know if the overseas Vietnamese audience will get it, or if they'll appreciate it, or if they'll like see him as doing
Wow.
something wrong. And it won our audience award at our spring showcase last year. And then there were
Gosh.
like just old people in the theater, young people, and so that was really moving. So in terms of like Q&As and the eventness of these film festivals, like that I hope that never goes away. That can't go away. But to answer your question about like favorite film experience, like I remember I watched Apollo 11 in the theater last year.
Yeah. Yeah, you had mentioned that. Tell me more about that.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I'd heard this was going to be quite a great film, but I'm like, all right, I mean, like, I know what happens
Sure.
for Apollo 11. I know they're going to make it to the moon.
Yeah.
Um, but so first of all, this is a documentary made up of footage that they has not really been revealed
Mhm.
since
Mhm.
the 1960s, and more specifically, they were shooting it on 70 millimeter film. And so this is like very, very high, like today we would call it like high resolution. Back then,
Yeah.
it was like these like large format film where you can get just like really great detail. The grain is just like immense and powerful. And I just love you watching it now. And I watched it in IMAX, which is also kind of utilizing 70 millimeter in such a kind of extravagant way. And it truly feels like the 1960s looks like high definition today. And you just don't realize that. I mean, we forget that the 1960s looked like the world that we look around us. It's not like they saw it in lower grade film or in black and white or something.
Right,
And
right.
so that kind of big screen experience really puts you there, and you have the sound and just the awe of it. And then all of that makes you believe in the feat all the more. The feat that, humans went to the moon.
Right.
And when you see it that way, um, I, I did not expect to be that moved and transported. Moved not just in terms of like the wow, like how amazing we are as a people, but
Right.
also just to be amazed that this is what it looked and felt, and you almost feel like you can smell it, and like it's just that visceralness and the immensity of the screen. It all brought it out.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like an incredible experience. I'm sad I missed it on the big screen now. But yet another reason to go to the movies. So, what should people watch while they're at home?
Um,
Like, what's your recommendations?
I mean, the top thing is like watch something you wouldn't have watched otherwise. I was just talking to some of my students today, and they were talking about how like there were these movies that people have always told them to watch, and then for whatever reason they've put it off. And they're like, "Oh, it can't be that good." But like
Like
now's your
what?
time to find out, right?
Yeah.
And then to find out like, and to me that's some kind of empathy about this moment where we can let go of a lot of our reservations, because
Mhm.
before we can always make excuses. Now you
Right.
have fewer excuses, and then now like you have no excuse but to watch something that moved one of your friends or family members. So I would say like to start off by like lowering your guard.
Okay.
And so the other thing I've been doing is I love the statement that I've been hearing about, like the Film Comment podcast said this, which was that there are no old movies anymore, because
Mhm.
all movies are old movies. There are no new movies. So all old movies are now new movies. And
That's
so what a
interesting.
great way of just diving into the past. For instance, living in San Diego, I don't get to see all of the great like film retrospectives that are happening in New York or San Francisco,
Sure.
Chicago. So I just went to like the Film at Lincoln Center's website, and they had this great series. It was dedicated to like independent Black cinema in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s.
Oh,
And I was like,
nice.
I wasn't able to watch that in New York because I live in San Diego, but I
Sure.
just looked it up. These films are on the Criterion Channel. They're on Canopy. They're on kind of various places that a lot of it, which I subscribe to, and
Mhm.
Amazon, or just paying $1.99 to watch it. And
Yeah.
I got like a third of this retrospective from home, and it really just feeling like I can actively be a part of film culture. I could have done that back when they had the retrospective, but I just, again, like I had all these excuses for myself. I'm too busy. I have places to be. But now it's like I have no excuse. I can find these movies, and it was transformative. Just thinking about sort of the independent spirit that was happening in these decades.
That's super interesting. But you thought to seek it out, right? So what are you recommending to your students? Like, is there anything in particular that you've been like, check out this time period or this genre or
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I teach an international cinema class, and
Nice.
so for
I want
instance,
your job, by the way.
like recently we've been talking about like Korean cinema in the early 2000s. Like for those of you who saw Parasites, like this didn't come out of nowhere. Like Bong Joon-ho has been making incredible
A
movies
lot of
since
movies, yeah.
the early
Mhm.
2000s. Um, those films are on Hulu right now. um,
Right.
and I'm sort of like forcing my students to go on Netflix and find Nigerian movies,
Mhm.
find art films from Europe, find Korean films. So almost like as a scavenger hunt, just to see what's out there. Like don't even, as a first step, don't even watch it. As a first step, just find out what is available to you that you didn't realize was available. And then
Right.
from there, really chase your own curiosity. I don't want to force feed and say like, you must watch
Sure.
my favorite, like I love this Tony Erdmann, the Marionette film from
Uh-huh.
Austria and Germany from a few years ago. It's not for everybody, um, but but it's available. That's the thing, and I would highly recommend that one.
See, that is true, because if you only look at what's recommended to you from Netflix or Hulu, they only, make some recommendations based on a previous title, but they have a wealth of titles that just aren't coming up unless you search for them.
Yeah, I love this idea. Like as an act of resistance, don't trust the algorithm. The
Yeah,
algorithm is trying to get you to watch something that makes you predictable. Like be
right.
And that's why I love film festivals. That's why I love working for a film festival. For the most part, we're recommending films to people who never knew that these were the films that they needed to watch. Um, Largely because maybe their viewing habits have never included Asian cinema or Asian American cinema or independent
Mhm.
film or experimental film or short films. But we kind of put it out there. We don't say you must watch this first or anything like that. But within our slate, there's got to be something that piques your interest, right? So
Absolutely.
I would say that's the attitude that someone should take.
Yeah, I love that. So, what are you looking forward to that's going to come out into the movie theaters in the next year?
Boy, I don't even know. I don't even know what's going on. But like everything keeps getting delayed.
I know that's true, but we do have some titles that are, pending a
Yeah,
release.
yeah. I'm excited about the new Wes Anderson movie,
Yes,
as
Fred
I always am.
Connected.
In
Yeah.
fact, I watched Isle of Dogs at the Angelika at Carmel.
Oh, so
Um,
good.
and these are big screen movies in the sense, like for opposite reason that's like an Avengers movie is a big screen movie. Like you want to scan the frame with a Wes Anderson movie, like the sense of like balance and color are just are made for the big screen experience. Like I
True.
love this idea that your eyes are moving around the screen when you're watching his films,
Yeah.
because like he spends so much time giving you the detail.
Mhm.
You want to be able to see it all. And um, I mean, I've got a pretty big screen TV, but it's not big enough for the kind of films that I want to see.
Oh, I'm sure Wes Anderson would love to hear that. But you're right, he does such interesting composition. Yes, that's a really great point. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Brian, on our coffee club in the virtual Angelica Cinema. And so you do have a festival coming up potentially in fall, right?
Yeah, so I mean, this morning I watched a couple of submissions. We're still working really hard to program the best possible slate. I think most film festivals are. Um, I mean, film festivals are doing double work right now. They're doing the work they normally do, in curation, but also the new work in like figuring out paths that have been unexplored, figuring out like how we're going to change the rules when it comes to premiere statuses, and also like talking with each other, talking with other film festivals, figuring out like is this an inflection point in which everything changes now? Do we have to rethink our business? Or how do we work together to ensure that those audiences who have so long committed to this idea of being in a theater, sharing laughter and tears in
Yeah.
darkness, um, especially for films that don't get a lot of advertising, still keep coming out.
Hmm.
That's the work that we're doing right now. So yeah, people can follow us on all the social media and keep following independent film and Asian cinema.
Yes, yes, very well said. Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us, Brian. And hit that subscribe button, everybody, and keep in touch with us at Angelica to find out what's happening next. Thank you.
Thank you.